So you just want to serve the poor. Well, that's very commendable. And it can be very rewarding. That's for sure. However, as commendable as it is, it's only one reality that we as members of the society have to contend with. The other reality is that we are living in the United States. Doing any kind of service is governed by federal and state laws, and in many cases now, more and more, local municipal laws as well. Now, you may not want to be concerned with this reality, and that's okay too. Then you need to make room at the table in your organizations, in your conferences and district councils and diocesan councils for the folks who do find that interesting and are willing to spend time living in that reality. Because otherwise, it presents a barrier to the service that you're so desperately inclined to want to provide to those in need. And it also can create problems that you're not even imagining at this moment in time. And there are things that are necessary to support the services that you do that make the donor who provides the resources able to say, I know that my contribution is being used wisely and correctly and accounted for properly. I want to spend a little time on this item, though, the charism of the Society of St. Vincent de Paul. And you have that in your slide, in your notebooks. The word charism comes from the Greek word that means favor or free gift. It's a genuine gift. It's not earned or merited. And it has to be freely given by the giver, and it has to be graciously accepted by the receiver. Charisms are graces of the Holy Spirit, and they manifest the work of God for the common good for all of us, in the church, and in our case, in the Society of St. Vincent de Paul. These charisms are intended to be at the service of charity, the good of people, and the needs of the world. In the course of his life and ministry, Vincent came to see that his charism, the gift given to him by the Holy Spirit to use for the building up of the church, was to preach the good news to the poor and make the love of God a reality in the lives of the poor. Vincent's charism is captured in the grace of finding the face of Christ in the poor. How often have we heard that? That's one of our primary reasons for being around. Jesus stands at the center of our Vincentian charism. And his words, you will always have the poor with you, are the justification for the Vincentian existence. The poor are our preferential option as Vincentians. And as Vincentians, we seek our holiness, which is one of the first parts of our mission statement. Our purpose for existence is to grow in holiness. We seek that holiness in service of the poor. The fire and light of Vincent and Blessed Frederick's charism is lived out in our actions today by our person-to-person ministry, our home visits, our special works. It is there that we show respect for the dignity and the integrity of the poor that we serve in charity and in justice. So God's grace strengthens and supports and energizes the practice of our Vincentian charism, which is rooted in Jesus and exemplified in the lives and the ministry of our founder and patron, Blessed Frederick Ozanam and St. Vincent de Paul. Both of them offer us a model that we must strive to imitate in our efforts to grow in holiness. Our rule and our bylaws and our other policies are all meant to help to live and grow in our vocation as Vincentians. So that's the focus and the reason why we want to emphasize charism in the very beginning of our material on talking about governance, We have a spiritual connection to all of this. We're not a social service box store. We're not a government agency, and we're not a normal, traditional, not-for-profit organization that just does good work in the community. We have more to that based on our mission. So that requires us to be aware of the plight of the poor and the oppressed, and to love them. That allows us to be able to act on their behalf and with them to make sure that justice happens. So it isn't enough to just do charity, as Pope Francis says. Charity is very important and it's critical, but it has to be connected to justice to make it a whole. Governance is rooted in our charism. And our charism is to preach the good news to the poor, to serve the suffering and the abandoned, to love the poor with compassion, both effectively and affectively, and to make God a reality in the lives of those who live in poverty. And it calls us and asks us to call others to justice and to trust in divine providence. That's probably one of the most important parts of our charism, to trust in divine providence and not to get ahead of it. Justice and charity are important, and the resources to do that work are critical. But we believe that this is God's work. This is not Roger's work. This is not Mary's work or Jim's work. This is God's work. And he will provide the resources, and it's going to be on his time schedule, not on ours. Now that's a very difficult thing for all of us to live with. Let's get it done. Go get it. Make it happen. That's not the way God works. And he gives us the resources, both physical and personal and emotional and spiritual and financial, to get the job done when it needs to get done. And when we get out in front of him and get ahead of him, that's when we always end up having problems inside our conferences and our councils. Okay? And we have a set of values and virtues, which we'll talk about later, that we live by as Vincentians.